The live show from the SCC studios in White Bear Lake, also playing live in St. Paul on SPNN. We're glad to have you here. Fascinating show tonight. We're going to tie in what does the Maplewood Community Center, what were the other, NCAA basketball, Indiana, gay rights, Muslim rights, what do all these have, what are the similarities between all these things? And so that's going to be the main focus as we, when we get into the main meat of the show. But before we get into that, I've got a couple of announcements to make. Oh yeah, this is a live call-in show, so if you want to call in with your comments or questions, please feel free to do that. There's the number down there, 651-747-3838. If you don't want to call in but want to leave a message, you can email me at speechlessmn@gmail.com, and you can watch some past shows on youtube.com/speechlessmn. So thanks for watching tonight. A couple pieces of information before we get into the show. One is Michelle McDonald is having a press conference down at the State Office Building at 4 p.m. Monday, April 6th. So that's this coming Monday, April 6th, State Office Building, room 181, which is right across the hallway from on the main level from the Secretary of State's office. And she'll be talking about her lawsuit, federal lawsuit for against Dakota County sheriffs and deputies and kind of the system there, prosecutors, and just for the way as she would describe it, and it's described in this federal lawsuit, torture. And since she's filed a lawsuit, she's even found out more things. But if you read the complaint, you know, one of the officers, Dakota County settled $350,000 because one of these officers broke a woman's leg while in custody, and there was no reason to have it happen. The other officer, Officer Gonder, has had some was giving racial slurs, and it's this Sheriff Gonder who also verbally assaulted, intimidated, and told a friend of mine who was a press, Don Mashek, that he could kill him. This is while Don's in the jail cell. He could kill him, and he'd have his job back the next day. He can shoot him in the head, and nothing would happen. I mean, this is bad news. So it's been interesting to see the reaction. Michael Brodkor from the Star Tribune, Steyr Press, that's what from the Star Tribune, wrote an article based off the press release, and some of the comments going around media have been, well, I think rather embarrassing from the people that have made the comments, laughing, this is hysterical. And some of these people I know, and shame on them, they are not getting what's happening, and they should know better. But they have to fight a political battle to appease whoever they're trying to appease. I don't know what it is, but if you've been through that situation, and it doesn't matter what race you are, but if you've been through that situation, you understand that this is serious business, and you'd be very thankful that somebody is stepping up to the plate and has the good attorneys, the civil rights attorneys, and that are willing to fight for you and defend your liberties. And actually, it's starting to make some national press. There's doing some investigative journalism is going on this case. So pretty excited that finally the corruption in the Minnesota courts will finally be exposed, and hopefully more information will come out instead of it being hidden. And it's going to take some national attention in order for Minnesota's judicial system to be exposed. And this may be the case that does it, and very well should be, in my opinion. But also in the Star Tribune, there's another article, editorial by Eric Cardle and Tom Dahlberg. They have a website called neopopulism.org, but what was the title of this article? All Power to the Populists. And it's talking about the judiciary and the need to have judicial elections and why the Supreme Court now should probably be elected rather than appointed. Because in one sense, the Supreme Court is acting as the judiciary is totally thrown out basically the law, and they're acting on their own ideologies. So let's elect them anyway. Type of deal. But I hope to have these guys on the show sometime soon so they can explain some of this. But it's a good article, and when you got an attorney also here through this editorial exposing some of the problems with the Minnesota judiciary and the federal judiciary, that's a big step. That's a big risk they take. But of course they do it in such an artful way and they're very powerful. At least Eric Cardle, Tom Dahlberg's not an attorney, but they're well known. So it's going to be very hard to go after them and pick them off like they tried to do with Greg, the Board on Judicial or the Professional Lawyers Responsibility Board tried to do with Attorney Greg Wurzel when he was running for the Minnesota Supreme Court. So interesting stuff on the judiciary, but we'll come back to that another day. Just want to let you know some other things coming up. This Saturday, Jeff Williams on North Star Oasis, as far as I know, is doing a show on the blood moons. And basically, the significance of the blood moon, what does that mean in relationship to astronomy, past history, maybe even a biblical perspective of course, the biblical prophecy, the moon will turn to blood. What does that mean? So I think it'll be a fascinating show to watch. That's at 4 o'clock this Saturday on this very same channel. So that's coming up Saturday. Next week on my show, because I can't be here, we're having a video on Dr. Duke Pesta. I've played clips of him, but we're basically playing about 55 minutes of him talking about Common Core and giving what the progressives' perspective on why they don't like Common Core and their statements about it. So I think you'll find that interesting. However, you won't see his whole speech because we just have an hour. So I think you'll find it very fascinating. That will be kind of a jump-off point to say, I need to consider what this Common Core is about, and I need to do something about it. All right. So I think that's all my catch-up there on what's coming up. But again, the show's going to be about NCAA basketball, the Final Four, religious freedom, gay rights, what does the Muslim faith, the killings in, where were those killings at that just took place? Where? Kenya? Yeah, and just the tragedy that took place there, and Maplewood Community Center. What do all these things have in common, and how is it affecting you? Also, martial law and the potentiality for that coming down the road. So we're going to start this off. Since it is Final Four weekend, we got being played in Indiana. Let's give a little basketball history. Now, this is done by Wall Builders, and it basically is explaining how basketball started. But what I also want you to notice is the background there of all the memorabilia, the artifacts, the original documents that they have. The Wall Builders organizations have gone out and bought tons of American history. basically Revolutionary Civil War, so that they have it, to preserve it, to keep it, to make sure it's around and not destroyed. So that's just some of the stuff in the background. So you can listen to what he says, but pay a little attention to the background of the set there. All right, let's listen to this video.
Hi, I'm Tim Barton with Wall Builders. Approximately 26 million people play the game of basketball today. The epitome of professional basketball is the National Basketball Association, or the NBA, which was formed in 1949. The NBA has produced stars of world renown, players like Magic Johnson, or Larry Bird, Dr. J, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Jerry West, Michael Jordan, even current stars like LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Stephen Curry. But few people know the origins of the game of basketball. Who invented basketball and why? James Naismith, born in Ontario, Canada, who later became an American citizen, invented the game of basketball in 1891. Naismith was a noted athlete in college himself, playing football, lacrosse, rugby, soccer, and even gymnastics. After he graduated from college, he attended a Presbyterian college and became a minister. In 1891, he moved from Canada to Springfield, Massachusetts to teach physical education at the International Young Men's Christian Association Training School, a school designed to train ministers and workers for what is today recognized as the YMCA. And although rarely acknowledged today, in its founding, the YMCA's goals were explicitly Christian. Because of the cold weather during the winter months in Springfield, Naismith was challenged to come up with a game that could be played indoors. He needed a high-energy game since it was believed that boys would get into trouble if they had too much unspent energy. So he invented the game of basketball, although the original game was very different than what is played today. The original game was played with a soccer-type ball and peach baskets that were hung from the railing of the gym balcony. After a goal was made, the game was paused so the janitor could bring out a ladder to retrieve the ball from the basket, and then play would resume. Finally, someone realized it would be better to simply cut the bottoms of the peach basket so the ball could fall through. The game of basketball became very popular in the YMCA and spread literally throughout the world. Naismith then moved from the YMCA Training College in Springfield to the Denver, Colorado YMCA, and while in Denver, he got a medical degree. Naismith next moved to Kansas, where he worked with the University of Kansas. He was the school's chapel director, and yes, the State University of Kansas had chapel like many other state schools at the time. Then he became their basketball coach and then was a university physician. During his time at the University of Kansas, World War I broke out. Naismith became part of the 1st Kansas Infantry and was their chaplain. This is a piece of Naismith's personal possessions from World War I. This is his sewing kit along with his chaplain's insignia. We also have a letter that Naismith wrote to one of his family members during World War I. Well, after the war, Naismith returned to the University of Kansas, acting as the school's athletic director until shortly before his death. Although millions of people currently participate in the game of basketball and countless more are entertained by it, very few know the origins of the game. James Naismith, a strong Christian who was a Presbyterian minister, a medical doctor, a military chaplain, and a physical education instructor, invented one of the most popular games in the world today. For more short stories and lots of other information, please visit our website at www.wallbuilders.com.
Well, I bet you didn't know that, all of that. Of course, many knew, if you're around basketball, James Naismith founded basketball, but you didn't know his religious background and the purpose for why he started the game of basketball and invented it. What's interesting in the twists and turns of this, of course, he worked with the YMCA. In the twist of this now, with Indiana having their law passed that really keeps things the same, saying that you have religious freedoms in Indiana and you can't be forced to do something against your religious liberties. And of course, now all the gay activists, the heterophobes, are out there saying, wow, this is terrible that Indiana will do this, and then they're misconstruing what the law is actually doing. But that's the MO. Let's tell a lie, let's tell it over and over again, and deceive people as to what's going on, and who cares, as long as the outcome is what I want. And of course, the Senate Majority Leader at the time, Harry Reid, had that situation with Mitt Romney where he complained about, he hasn't paid his taxes for all these years, and he knew it was a lie. And when he's got called on the carpet with the issue, he goes, well, we won, or whatever he said. We won, or Romney lost, we accomplished our goals. And so that's a character issue. And unfortunately, a lot of people like that type of character in order to accomplish the ends justify the means. And so now the NCAA, whose whole game was founded on and by a Christian man for Christian purposes, is going after Indiana because they're discriminating against gays. And the issue is, that's not the issue. They're not discriminating against gays. What they're saying is you can't force somebody to do something against their religious practices. And so if you don't want to bake a cake, if you don't want to cater a gay wedding because it violates your religious beliefs, you don't have to do that, and you're protected not only by the Constitution, not only by the U.S. Constitution, the Indiana Constitution, and the state statutes. You're protected by those, and the state statutes, which is kind of a redundancy there, just to make, I don't know why they have to be so redundant, but the gays are saying, well, they're taking this pizza shop owner who said, I am not going to participate in any gay weddings and not serve and have my services promoting a gay wedding. And the heterophobes are out there going and saying, well, they're just not going to serve gays at all in the restaurant. We're not serving them. Well, that's just a lie. And they just promote it, and so now the NCAA is considering, because the Final Four is in Indiana, is considering some type of sanctions or statement, or it's too late now, but if they could have, they may have pulled out of Indiana for those games. Now, here's what I say to that. NCAA, you want to leave? That's fantastic. I have no problem with that. It's called freedom of association. So they understand freedom of association. We don't want to associate you with Indiana, so we're going to go to another state. Great, but here the hypocrisy is that you come down and say, no, you have a pizzeria, you have a wedding photo area, you have a wedding cake area service, but we're going to force you to associate with people that violate your religious values. See the hypocrisy? These guys are haters. They're bigots. They're haters. And they need to back off, and they need to back down. And they don't care about their hypocrisy. Where the Christian is going and saying, I want my freedom of association. You want to come in my restaurant and eat? You want to have me take pictures? But fine, but I'm not going to do it promoting a lifestyle that is in violation of my faith. And you know what? Here's the deal. These people get it. They understand that they're hypocrites. They know they're hypocrites. They don't care. That's where was this one company? I wrote it down here. Salesforce, Mark Benioff, saying he's letting his people leave. This is why our country was founded, so people can go from state to state, and each state would be an experiment. But you see, what's happening is the Federalists are trying to make everybody not the federal, the nationalists are trying to make each state be the same. And it's the same thing with Common Core. We want a federal curriculum, that the curriculum is the same at every grade level, every day, all across the United States. And that is a recipe for disaster. It just takes away innovation, takes away creativity. It takes away the soul of the individual and the soul. And the whole purpose of that is not to have standardizing. So the whole purpose of that is to destroy. That's the purpose. That's the only thing that can happen from it anyway. And they know it. Bill Gates knows that. He doesn't want competition. Matter of fact, he's doing everything so he doesn't have competition. That's why he gives to certain charities, and so that then they'll buy his computers. And the biggest charity there is the federal government. So here we have this, so much for freedom of religion, so much for freedom of association, so much for peaceful assembly. We're going to tell you what to do, and you don't get to exercise your freedoms. So Indiana is taking you know what? I don't even think they're taking a hit. Here's what's going to happen. Let's let people freely associate, and let's let God give the blessings to whoever he wants to give them to. We'll see what happens. We're going to find out. Let it happen. Why the big deal? Just let it be. You're telling me there aren't wedding photo places that are out there that won't service the gay community? That there aren't cake makers that won't service the gay community? But you got to target somebody based on their religious freedom, and then you got to go sue them? The whole concept of our Constitution is out the door. These people have the right to say what they want to say. Mark Benioff has the right to help his sales force out that wants to move. If that's what he wants to do, fine. I have the right to not use his product, and that's great. But let's not be hypocritical about it, and that's exactly what they're doing. Okay, so they're forcing themselves on people. Okay, so with that, I want to come and then extend it to a real issue going on in the Muslim community and with the wars. Now, what just happened in Kenya, the last report I heard was 70 people were killed and at a university, but the killers were going around saying, "Are you a Christian?" And if they answered yes, they were killed on the spot. And I just heard real recently that maybe as 149 have been killed. But in order to stop those people, the military came in and killed the Muslims, who were the Islamic people who were doing this killing. And so I want to show you this next video, and I'm going to tie this back into the NCAA and basketball and Indiana and the gay rights issue. But I want to see what Admiral Lyons, James Lyons, has to say about the Muslim history. Let's play the video and we'll comment on it afterwards.
Very pleased to have Admiral James Lyons with us. Sir, welcome.
Well, thank you, Frank. Sorry I missed the earlier presentations due to my 3-hour and 20-minute commute this morning. But, as a number of you heard me say before, we've had many opportunities to change the course of history. And it hasn't mattered whether it's been a Republican or Democratic administration. We failed every one of them. Starting with Carter, with the takeover of our embassy. We could have cut off Khomeini and his Islamic fundamentalism at the knees. We were going to take Carg Island, and he rejected it. We could have walked in. The next time was the Marine barracks bombing. And you all probably wonder why we never responded. I won't go into the long detail, but the guy that sabotaged the strike and I'm glad you're all sitting down, was the Secretary of Defense. Not once, but twice. Reagan approved, the French wanted to do a combined strike, and Reagan approved it, and Weinberger wouldn't issue the order. I have personally talked to George Shultz and Bud McFarland. They told me they pleaded with him, and he wouldn't do it. You have to say, who the hell got to him, or what got to him? I've never been able to get an answer on that. In the Gulf Tanker War in '87, we were going to bring down the Khomeini regime. You know, and the guy that sabotaged, I had briefed Weinberger at my headquarters at Pearl Harbor that summer. And this was going to be in August of '87. And the one who undercut us the most was our own chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Crow, at the time. You know, if you go forward and you look at, you know, we shot down by accident that Iranian civilian airliner a few months later. And what did Khomeini do? He said, I'm drinking from the chalice of poison. And he said, I have to make a truce with Saddam Hussein because the Americans have shown they're coming in on Iraq's side. Well, think of what the hell we could have done had we executed the strike we wanted to do in August of '87. You know, we all say we have to identify the threat. Well, I think the one who identified it the best was Erdogan from Turkey, when he said, Islam is Islam. There are no modifiers. Democracy is the train we ride to our ultimate objective. He couldn't have said it any plainer. And until you recognize that Islam is a political movement masquerading as a religion, you're never going to come to grips with it. And as far as a strategy, let me just conclude one thing. And as I just had in my latest op-ed, the Obama administration has a strategy. It's very simple. Any thinking American should be able to grasp it. It's anti-American, anti-Western, it's pro-Islamic, it's pro-Iranian, and pro-Muslim Brotherhood. And with that, I'll yield the mic.
Wow. You know, how do you add to that? Of course, that's his perspective. I happen to agree with him on that perspective. Now, just an update, CNN says about 147 died, 79 injured. So that's coming off CNN. This video from Admiral Lyons was provided by LiveLeaks, who, you know, like a number of places, try to go out and get information that you just wouldn't hear other place and is not getting reported. And I think this is a fantastic piece to hear the perspective of Admiral James Lyons, who's very involved here, but his statement, Islam is Islam. You know, there is no, it is what it is. I mean, that's a tautology, not really saying anything, except to say that it behaves the way it says it behaves in the book. You know, that's my interpretation of that. You can't disassociate what they're doing from the book, because what they're doing is the book that they follow. And the democracy is the train we ride to our own objective. Remember that. I'll show you that. I will demonstrate that in this show. Democracy is the train we ride to our own objective. And if you don't, my viewers out there, if you don't get that, you're lost. And they will overcome you, they will overrun you, and when their objective is complete, they will kill you like they're doing in Kenya. Okay? That's their goal. It's the train, it's the path. Democracy will get us to our end because, one, they're going to out-baby us. You know, they're going leaps and bounds, and we're aborting our babies. Of course, you know, the progressive, the liberals, they understand that. They want to destroy America too, And that's kind of why they wanted the Muslims to come in here, because they're against America. Muslims is a theocracy. Islam is a theocracy. That's the only thing it will ever be. Okay, they don't separate church and state in there. Okay, so that's all it will ever be. And you know, if you don't get that, if you don't want to get that, you know, you're just a lost soul out there. And so when his statements that you know, Obama is anti-American, anti-West, pro-Israel, pro-Muslim, pro-Islam, that's a very, very strong statement coming from that admiral. But that kind of, in that process, it begs a little question here that I think needs to be addressed, that for whatever reason isn't at the forefront of people's minds in this discussion. What is the difference between Jesus and Muhammad? What's the difference between what Jesus taught and what Muhammad taught? And what was the difference between the way Jesus lived and the way Muhammad lived? Well, I found a interesting video by David Crowder with Liberty Alliance that's humorous but serious at the same time. And so let's watch this and have a discussion on the difference afterwards.
Today, kids, we're going to be comparing Jesus to Muhammad. Peace be. So one of the most controversial videos that I've ever done would have to be the Quran Challenge. If you click the link, you'll get to see the thousands of threats that I'd received for insinuating that the Quran wasn't inherently a peaceful book. Now, many people think it's very unfair to compare the acts of Christians to the acts of Muslims. And I still agree. Both groups often consist of hypocrites. So let's get to the root of the issue. Yes, let's look to the faith's holiest of prophets, their model citizens, if you will. Jesus versus Muhammad. Also, quick note, even though I know that I can physically portray Jesus as much as I want without any fear of violent repercussions whatsoever.
Hey Jesus, how you doing? You want me to pour you some wine?
I am aware that in the Muslim faith, not believing in free speech does not allow for the same portrayals of Muhammad, which is why in these dramatizations I've gone to great lengths to avoid doing so.
I am not Muhammad!
Okay, firstly, before we get to their actual teaching, let's start with their personal lives. Though Jesus was never married, Muhammad's seemingly favorite wife was Aisha, who according to was around 6. Though to be fair, he only consummated when she was 9.
I have puppies in back!
And in the spirit of full disclosure, Muhammad had many wives.
Not Muhammad! Who are you speaking? Shut up! You're not the boss of me!
As a matter of fact, he had so many wives, here's a chart. So while Jesus was actually raising young adolescent girls from the dead, it seems that Muhammad was a little more concerned with moving on. Jesus was actually pretty big on the whole treating women with respect and protecting them deal.
Hey, whoa! You're crossing some serious lines! Okay, you got a lot of growing up to do. Oh, yeah. I'll tell you that right now. But you're the floozy! Oh, like you're so perfect, Carl! I can make one phone call.
Whereas Muhammad was not only involved in the commanding of killing certain women, committed domestic violence against his wife Aisha, said that women constituted a majority of hell, but there was actually a dame who was stoned to death as per his individual orders. Now, regardless of his servitude, Jesus never demanded anything in return from these women.
All right, come on, let me pay for it.
I got it. Go and say no more. whereas Muhammad had quite a few slaves and concubines.
Please, not Muhammad, tell me how I can please you.
You can make me a sandwich. Like yesterday?
Many of these, shall we call them, female properties he'd gained in battle after having slaughtered their fathers.
Are you still here?
Which leads us to a key difference. Jesus, a servant, never fought a battle, never owned a slave, and never killed a guy. Not only did Muhammad do so, but he actually felt that it was his divine calling to kill non-Muslims and had murdered people who insulted him.
You're a bully! You're dead!
Which finally brings us to the teachings of Jesus versus Muhammad. And there are too many to list here, so let's go to the tail of the tape. Jesus taught to love your enemies and teach your faith with gentleness and respect. Muhammad taught his followers to kill, convert, or subjugate Christians and Jews. Jesus said that God will judge apostates. Muhammad instructed his followers to kill them. Jesus taught mercy. The Quran teaches us punishment over compassion. But if you're noticing a disturbing trend here, congratulations, you're a logical person. But my challenge to you this time is to go beyond reading a chapter or two. Start with the verses listed in this video, but try and read the New Testament and the Quran in their entirety and compare the two for contrast. See if you can spot some differences that I've missed. If so, let me know below. I think the differences are no better exemplified than Jesus' last words, having been tortured and persecuted, yet having never retaliated on the cross, asking God to forgive them for they know not what they do, versus the last words of war-waging Muhammad, having never been tortured or persecuted to the same degree, in which he said, "May Allah curse the Jews and Christians, for they built the places of worship at the graves of the prophets." The holiest of prophets, and you're going to make those your last words? Really?
Not Muhammad! Please, what shall I say of you? Should I say that your peace and love will transform the earth?
No, don't worry about it. Such strong hands.
Not Muhammad! What about salvation and forgiveness? How about that? Oh, anything now, Muhammad. What shall I say of you?
How do you feel about the Jews?
Well, interesting. Little sarcasm there. Of course, you know how sarcasm goes with the St. Paul School Board, but it speaks truth. And it speaks to the reality of the difference between Jesus and Muhammad, which, even though that had humor in it, needs to be taken very seriously. You can check all those references there. You know, go back, youtube.com/speechlessmn. He'll be up in a couple days. And or David Crowder, Google his name and you'll see that. I want to tie this in with what's going on with the Indiana and these corporations. Apple Computer, the name of that corporation, which I forgot, Salesforce. They want to protect gays while doing business in states that will nations that will stone homosexuals. You get the hypocrisy? Indiana isn't going to stone a homosexual, but Apple Computer and Salesforce does tons of sales in Muslim countries. Okay, see where they stone gay people. See the hypocrisy, the distinction there. They want to freely associate with what state they want to, but won't let individuals have the freedom to do the same. Just another form of hypocrisy. Being forced to participate in a religious ceremony or an abortion procedure that violates religious beliefs is unconstitutional and uncivil. And that's what Mark Beinoff and the head of Apple and all these people are promoting. They're uncivil, they're unconstitutional, and they're not willing to stand up for everybody's rights. and they're not able to stand up for religious liberties. And thus you get what happens in Garissa University College in Kenya, where all these Christians get slaughtered. I'm not saying that without a reason. I want to show you what took place in Irving, Texas, here just a little while ago in a city council meeting about whether Muslims could, outside foreign laws can come into that city and the city would have to abide by them. There was a motion before the city council. Hear what the vote total on that motion was. It will shock you. So let's play that video.
Anger tonight from Muslims in Irving. This after the city just approved a resolution that they say is aimed at persecuting their religion. Jeff Paul on the story, joining us live tonight, where Irving's mayor is defending this vote that went down. Jeff?
Well, Doug, tempers flared here inside City Hall in Irving as council members voted and approved on this resolution right here in support of a House bill that forbids any use of any foreign law. Now, it was a more symbolic vote, but many Muslims who were inside tonight say they feel like they're being targeted and that it further solidifies Islamophobia.
Please vote.
In 5 seconds, the Irving City Council physically will change nothing.
And that motion passes 5-4.
But mentally, for the dozens of Muslims who packed inside City Hall, they say it crushes them.
I think it is the most disgraceful day as a citizen in Irving.
What Omar Solomon is talking about is the approved city resolution that supports House Bill 562. The proposed legislation codifies that U.S. and state laws supersede foreign laws.
The elephant in the room is that it's the anti-Sharia bill.
Many Muslims believe it's in reaction to a new Islamic tribunal that was just created in Irving earlier this year. The Muslim judges told us in February it was religious mediation for civil disputes like marriage and not binding.
This bill does not mention at all Muslim, Sharia law, Islam, even religion.
The mayor telling the crowd it's important to recognize the Constitution and unite behind U.S. and Texas laws.
Respect them, obey them, embrace them.
Muslims like Solomon say it's that rhetoric that furthers this stigma they say endangers them.
All we can do is we can take it to the ballot box. I mean, we will vote.
Now, state lawmakers in support of this House bill say it should get a reading later this month at a state judicial meeting, but it still has a long road before it sees any votes or is passed into law. Reporting live tonight here in Irving, I'm Jeff Paul, CBS 11 News.
Irving, Texas, CBS News. I want to thank them for that clip. You got to understand everything that young man was saying there was intent on deceiving. He knows the end game in this because it's spelled out in the Quran. It's spelled out in the writings of Muhammad, the books of Muhammad. So the objective and the goal and deception to accomplish the end is very much part of their faith. It's not the Christian faith. And that's what I want people to understand. There's such a distinction that is so opposite of the Christian faith versus the Muslim faith. And this whole thing was not about Islam. They're just interpreting it that way for their own purposes to advance Sharia law for their people there. And the mayor was right, but the vote was 5-4. It's just unbelievable. Maybe that was a strategic vote to think, okay, we got a chance here. We just get one more person elected and out, and we'll have a 5-4 vote go our way next time. And to try to create peace for the meantimes, I don't know what totally is behind that. If it would have been a 9-0 vote, could there have been riots in the streets? Who knows? But it wasn't that way. But they wanted Sharia law. And wanted foreign law to govern, and they will do this. It's amazing to me how many people showed up. It's not amazing to me. I don't know why I said that. What's amazing to me is how many people of faith don't show up and protect their own liberties. And really, I would say the church today is raising cowards. They're saying, don't engage your neighbor, don't be involved in the governmental process because you have better things to do. And it's just not true. You do that along with everything else you do. And so they're raising cowards and raising ignorant people who don't know how to live in the world that they're in and how to converse and how to get along. It's just amazing to me. And believe me, there are battles going on in churches over this very issue because some people are out there trying to say, hey people, you need to wake up. You need to defend your liberties. You need to defend your faith. You can do it in a way that's fun. You can do it in a way that, well, you know what? You can't. You will offend people. Christianity is offensive. The Bible says Christianity is offensive. It's offensive to the person that's perishing, but it's life and joy to the one that is not. And so you just got to realize we have to get along. That's what part of the greatness of our country was. We can get along. We can have differences, but we don't have to force other people to live our religion. Okay, and the other people don't have to force you. And so we come and settle on what are rules to engage each other that are there for everybody, and not just for some and not for others. So now, just past history, this whole aspect of foreign laws coming to the United States and being used as a basis for our laws, well, in the Supreme Court, Justice Ginsburg has used foreign constitutions, foreign laws, and some of her judgments to justify her judgments. And of course, Justice Ginsburg is a communist, and she that's what I've heard, that's what I've seen from her, and she has no respect for religious freedom or our Constitution in our mind. She has always voted against liberty, in my mind. So, all right, now the last piece of this is, last video I have is from Gary, I'm going to mess his name, Franchi. Well, you're going to hear his name anyway, but I want you to pay attention to his website because it just has good information coming out on liberty issues. And this video is about martial law and the United States military practicing martial law in Florida. So let's watch the video.
Got some news for you now. FEMA camp roundup drills in Fort Lauderdale. Well, it is not a hoax. The Sun Sentinel has reported, and now video has surfaced of Special Forces operations taking place under the cover of night in Broward County, Florida. The shocking video shows Black Hawk helicopters flying low and landing as Americans are marched single file through the city streets and then loaded into white vans taken to mock internment camps. Frightening video. Now 200 military personnel from all 4 branches of the military took part in this coordinated drill, the locations of which were not disclosed to the public prior to the urban warfare training exercise. Now the Sentinel is reporting that, quote, the goal is to prepare participants in realistic, unfamiliar training conditions before they deploy for combat overseas. However, concerned citizens are not buying it, and they believe there is a dual purpose for the action, and that is to train soldiers for real-life domestic martial law. Likewise, it's important to note that the Jade Helm exercises have recently labeled Texas and Utah as hostile territories in documents related to that exercise. Now let's flash back to 2009. The web was then ablaze with the revelation that the National Guard was hiring soldiers to become internment camp specialists.
Military Occupational Specialty, Internment Resettlement Specialist. The Army's Internment Resettlement Specialist plays an integral role in providing a uniform system of handling prisoners and detainees. First and always, these MPs are combat support soldiers, trained to fight. Then as Internment Resettlement Specialists, trained to control and supervise detainees, to ensure humane treatment, and to assist them in returning to a productive life. For this job, you must qualify for a secret clearance.
Now, for those of you watching right now thinking that this is just some crank conspiracy nonsense and Americans will never be rounded up and forced into camps, I'll leave you with the words of Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia. Now, he recently said in February of 2014, he issued a stark warning when he spoke to a group of students at the University of Hawaii. Now, he was responding to a question about the 1944 Supreme Court ruling that upheld internment of Americans during World War II. He said, quote, "You are kidding yourself if you think the same thing will not happen again. The ruling was wrong, but I would not be surprised to see it happen again. In time of war, it's no justification, but it is the reality." When a Supreme Court justice tells you it will happen again, perhaps we should listen. What do you think? Sound off in the comments section. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. For the Next News Network, I'm Gary Franchi.
All right, Gary Franchi, Next News Network. Got to tie this in. I mean, just some disturbing things that are happening. There's a high school now, just came out in the news today, and I didn't get all the details on it, but it's starting an ISIS club, and they have support for starting this ISIS club. And it's amazing to me. It's very, very difficult to start a Bible club at schools, but an ISIS club, there you go, just that easy. And Project Veritas and James O'Keefe, he does a lot of undercover investigations on abortion and the corruption going on at Planned Parenthood and other abortion clinics. Did an undercover sting at various universities, Cornell, and also one in Florida, about starting an ISIS clubs at those places, and got positive feedback. I mean, these are groups that are designed to destroy America. That's what they're going to do. They don't want democracy. They don't want freedom. They're going to use it in order to get their theocracy in place. And it's just amazing to me that the left is embracing this, especially with all the women's rights people out there, because the Muslim faith does not respect women at all. And of course Muhammad didn't. And it's just not too difficult to find out, you know, how Muhammad behaved and what he taught compared to Jesus. And just a night and day. And so, you know, they go to these universities, but the advice, yeah, we support you, but you know what? Change your name. Just so it'd be more acceptable. Don't use ISIS. Change it to something else. And of course, that's the mode of operation with Planned Parenthood when they were at one time called the American Nazi Movement. They lost that war, so they had to change their name to the euthanasia, and that didn't go well. Then the forced sterilization, and that didn't go well. Then they went to birth control, and the name control didn't work so well, and then they ended up with Planned Parenthood. It's all the same people, all the same players, and it's not about your liberties. And there's a problem in the Republican Party, too, on that issue, and those are the corporatists that say they're Republicans. But, of course, most corporate leaders today are Democrats, like George Soros, who can't stand America. His goal is to destroy that, too. And we're in a bad way. We're in definitely a bad way. All right, so I want to thank you all for watching the show. Just remind you, next week we're going to have a video on Common Core by Dr. Duke Pesta, and I think you'll find it very interesting about the progressives' viewpoint on why they don't like Common Core and the problems with it. And then this Saturday on this channel at 4 o'clock, Jeff Williams, host of North Star Oasis, will be talking about blood moons. And I think you'll find that very, very interesting. Okay, and then McDonald's press conference coming up, 4 o'clock down at the State Office Building. All right, a lot going on, a lot about the judiciary. You don't hear about it. It's not in the news, but behind the scenes, for Minnesota to have a transparent judiciary and to get the corruption out and expose what's going on, there's a big battle going on in this state. It all ties into the, oh yeah, I got to bring the tie into Maplewood Community Center. I'm running out of time. It's forced associations. See, and when the liberals think, oh yeah, we'll take money from all these people and give it to certain select people so they don't have to pay as much, it's forced association. And that forced association is the same thing with the gay rights agenda. It's the same process. It's un-American, it's uncivil, it's unconstitutional, it's to design, destroy, and that's why the Maplewood Community Center needs to go. And if the YMCA was smart, they wouldn't have, or is it Salvation Army? YMCA was smart, they wouldn't do anything with it. They'd walk away. All right, remember, if you don't stand up for other people's liberties, who's going to stand up for yours? And good men don't do nothing. God bless. Have a great week.
You said to me that you wouldn't leave, but now I see that you're long gone. Days go by, the forest sets on fire.